The town of Black Hollow, Pennsylvania, was a forgotten speck on the map, swallowed by dense woods and secrets older than the hills. It was the kind of place where the air felt heavy, where the silence was louder than it should be, and where the shadows seemed to linger just a little too long. The narrator's voice would start low, almost a whisper, setting the stage for dread. This is the story of Ethan Caldwell, a 17-year-old kid with a restless mind and a sketchbook full of dreams. Ethan wasn't like the other teens in Black Hollow. He didn't care for the Friday night football games or the gossip that swirled around the local diner. He was always chasing something bigger, something real, sketching stories in charcoal and ink, searching for meaning in a town that felt like it was holding its breath. Black Hollow had its legends, and none loomed larger than the Shadow Man. Every kid grew up hearing about him, a figure of pure darkness, a silhouette with no face, no substance, just a void that seemed to eat the light around it. The old folks at the diner would tell you he appeared on moonless nights, standing at the edge of the woods, his head tilted like he was listening to your heartbeat. Some called him a ghost, others a demon, and a few whispered he was something older, something that had been here before the town was even a thought. "If you see him," Ethan's grandmother used to say, her voice rough as gravel, "you don't run, you don't scream, you just pray he doesn't follow you home." Ethan didn't believe the stories. Not really. He thought they were just small-town folklore, the kind of thing people clung to when they had nothing else. But that night, everything changed. It was late October, the air crisp and sharp, the streets empty except for the faint flicker of streetlights. Ethan was walking home through the park, his sketchbook tucked under his arm, his boots crunching on fallen leaves. The park was a shortcut, a quiet stretch of grass and twisted oaks that led to his house on the edge of town. That's when he saw it. At first, he thought it was a shadow, just a trick of the dim light. But then it moved not like a person, but like smoke sliding across the ground, smooth and unnatural. It was tall, its edges blurry, like it was fraying into the night. Where its face should have been, there was nothing, just a blank void that seemed to pull at the world around it. Ethan's breath caught, his heart pounding so loud he thought it might burst. The Shadow Man stood at the far end of the park, motionless, its head tilted slightly, like it was sizing him up. His sketchbook slipped from his fingers, hitting the dirt with a soft thud. The narrator's voice would pause here, letting the silence build tension. Ethan wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move, like the earth itself was holding him in place. He blinked, and for a split second, he thought he saw something in that faceless void eyes, maybe. Or worse, holes that went on forever, endless and hungry. Then it was gone, melting into the trees, leaving nothing but the sound of his own ragged breathing. He grabbed his sketchbook and ran home, his hands shaking as he fumbled with the lock. His mom was asleep on the couch, the TV droning with some late-night ad, and he didn't wake her. Who would believe him anyway? The next day, Ethan tried to shake it off. He went to school, sat through classes, doodled in his notebook, but the image of that thing wouldn't leave him. He sketched it over and over the tall, faceless figure, its edges smudged like a nightmare caught on paper. His best friend, Mia, noticed he was off. Mia was tough, with a sharp wit and a laugh that could cut through any tension. She'd grown up on the same stories, but always laughed them off as fairy tales. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said at lunch, snatching one of his fries. He told her what happened, his voice low, like he was afraid the thing might hear. Mia's smile faded, her eyes narrowing. "You're serious?" she asked. When he nodded, she leaned in. "Ethan, come on, it's just a story. You probably saw a shadow or a deer or something." But Ethan wasn't convinced. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the wind howling outside his window. His room overlooked the backyard, which stretched right up to the woods. Around midnight, he heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingers on glass. His heart raced as he peered out the window. Nothing, just the dark, endless trees. But then he saw it again, standing just beyond the fence, taller now, its form sharper, like it was becoming more real. The tapping wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from inside the house. The narrator's voice would slow, each word heavy with dread. Ethan crept downstairs, his bare feet cold on the hardwood, following the sound. It was coming from the living room, where his mom still slept, oblivious. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, coming from the front door. His hand hovered over the doorknob, his mind screaming at him to stop, but he couldn't. He opened the door. The porch was empty, the street silent, but the tapping didn't stop. It was behind him now, inside the house. He turned, his breath hitching, and there it was, the shadow man, standing in the hallway. Its faceless head tilted, its body like a stain on reality. Ethan stumbled back, his shoulder hitting the wall, and blinked. It was gone, but the air felt wrong, heavy, like it was pressing down on him. He didn't sleep that night. At school, he was a mess, his eyes bloodshot, his hands shaking. He told Mia everything, and this time, she didn't laugh. She suggested they go to the library, dig into the town's history, see if there was anything real behind the legend. The Black Hollow Library was a crumbling relic, its shelves packed with dusty books and old newspapers. They spent hours there, finding fragments of stories that chilled Ethan to the bone. Articles from the 1960s about missing hikers, their belongings, found scattered in the woods. A journal from the 1930s describing a man of shadow that haunted the town's early days. A police report from the 1990s mentioning a witness who saw a faceless figure before a house fire. The more they read, the more Ethan felt watched, like the library itself was closing in. Mia found an old book, Tales of Black Hollow. Its pages, brittle and faded, it called the Shadow Man a watcher of the lost, a being that fed on fear, growing stronger the more you noticed it. Once you see him, it said, he sees you, and he never stops. The narrator would let that line linger, cold and final. Ethan wanted to stop, to go home, to forget, but Mia was relentless. She insisted they go to the woods, to the spot where Ethan first saw it, to prove it was nothing. Against his better judgment, he agreed. That evening, they headed to the park. The sky bruised with twilight, the woods were silent, the air thick, with the scent of pine and decay. They found the spot, marked by a gnarled oak with roots like twisted fingers. Mia tried to joke, but Ethan felt it, the weight of something watching. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper, and then they heard it, a low hum, like a voice but not a voice, like the earth itself was speaking. Mia grabbed his arm, her bravado gone, and Ethan saw it, the shadow man, at the edge of the clearing, its form sharper, its void face pulsing with something alive, something hungry. Mia screamed, and they ran, branches snapping, the hum chasing them. They didn't stop until they reached Mia's house, slamming the door behind them. The narrator would quicken the pace here, mirroring their panic. Mia's mom wasn't home, and the house felt too big, too empty. They sat in the living room, lights on, trying to calm down. But the tapping came again, louder, at every window, every wall, like the house was under siege. At 3 a.m., the power went out, plunging them into darkness. Ethan saw it first, standing in the corner, taller than the ceiling, its edges bleeding into the walls. Mia saw it too, her screams silent. They ran upstairs, barricading her bedroom door, but the tapping followed, slow and deliberate, like it was toying with them. Ethan's mind raced, piecing together the stories. The shadow man fed on fear, grew stronger the more you believed. He told Mia they had to stop being afraid. But how do you stop fearing something real? The tapping stopped, and then the door creaked, the barricade sliding. They climbed out the window, onto the roof, the night air biting their skin. Below, the shadow man stood in the yard, looking up, its head tilted, its void face unreadable. Ethan realized it wasn't just watching, it was waiting for them to break. They ran to Ethan's grandmother's house, the only place he could think of. She opened the door, her face pale, her eyes knowing. You saw him, she said, pulling them inside. She told them the truth. The shadow man wasn't a ghost or a demon, but a wound in the world. Born from Black Hollow's sins, murders, betrayals, secrets buried deep. She gave them an iron key, rusted and heavy, and told them to go to the old church, abandoned since the 1800s. He's strongest in the dark, she said, but the church is hallowed ground. He can't follow. Asterisk the narrator would build the tension as they set out, the key cold in Ethan's hand. The town swallowed by darkness. The church was a ruin, its windows shattered, its air thick with decay. The key fit a basement door, leading to a tunnel damp and narrow, descending into the earth. At its end was a chamber, its walls carved with symbols that seemed to riff. A stone slab held a book, its pages filled with names, dates, sins the town's founders, their crimes, their guilt, the shadow man. The ashes of the book swirled into the gray dawn, carried away by a cold wind that seemed to whisper through the trees surrounding Black Hollow. Ethan and Mia stood in the clearing, their breath visible in the chilly air, their eyes fixed on the smoldering pile. The narrator's voice would drop low, heavy with unease, as if the world itself was watching. They wanted to believe it was over, that burning the book had severed the shadow man's hold on them, on the town. But Ethan's gut twisted with a truth he couldn't shake. The shadow man wasn't gone. It was out there, in the shadows, in the cracks of Black Hollow's history, waiting. Mia's face was pale, her usual fire dimmed, her hands still trembling. From the night's terror, "We did it, right?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's done." Ethan didn't answer. He couldn't. The air felt wrong, like it was pressing down on them, and in the distance, through the trees, he swore he saw something move, a flicker of darkness, too quick to be sure. Asterisk they walked, back to town in silence, the weight of the night clinging to them like damp cloth. Black Hollow was waking up, the first signs of life stirring, a pickup truck rumbling down Main Street, the diner's neon sign flickering on, but it felt hollow, like a stage set for something sinister. Ethan's grandmother was waiting on her porch when they arrived, her rocking chair still, her eyes sharp and knowing. She didn't ask about the book, didn't ask what they'd seen in the church's basement. She just handed Ethan a cup of coffee, black and bitter, and said, "You can't unsee him, boy. Once he's in your head, he stays." Her words hung in the air, and Ethan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning cold. Mia shifted uncomfortably, her arms crossed tight. "So what do we do?" she asked. Ethan's grandmother looked out at the woods, her expression unreadable. "You live with it," she said, "or you don't." Asterisk the narrator would pause here, letting the gravity of her words sink in. Ethan and Mia tried to go back to normal, or at least pretend. School felt like a dream, the hallways too bright, the chatter of their classmates too loud. Ethan kept his sketchbook closed, afraid to draw, afraid of what might come out. But the shadow man was there, in every dark corner, every reflection in a window. At night, the tapping returned, not loud, not insistent, but faint, like a reminder. It came from different places now, the attic, the basement, the walls themselves, as if the house was alive with it. Ethan's mom noticed his sleepless eyes, his jumpiness, but he brushed her off with excuses about school stress. He couldn't tell her the truth. How do you explain something that shouldn't exist? Asterisk Mia wasn't doing much better. She stopped joking, stopped stealing his fries at lunch. One day, she pulled him aside in the school parking lot, her voice low. "I saw it again," she said, her eyes darting to the tree line beyond the asphalt. "Last night, in my backyard." It was just her standing there, Ethan, watching her. The voice cracked, and Ethan felt his stomach lurch. He hadn't told her, but he'd seen it too. In the alley behind the diner, its form blending with the shadows of the dumpster. It didn't approach, didn't chase, but its presence was heavier now, like it was growing, feeding on their fear, just like the book said. Asterisk they went back to the library, desperate for answers. The old book, Tales of Black Hollow, was gone, checked out, the librarian said, though she couldn't say by whom. But they found something else, a newspaper clipping from 1973. Tucked inside a folder of local history. It described a fire that had gutted half the town, blamed on faulty wiring, but with whispers of something else. A survivor, a kid back then, had claimed to see a man with no face watching from the flames. The article mentioned a name, Ezekiel Crane, one of Black Hollow's founders, a man whose name appeared in the ledger they'd burned. The clipping hinted at a ritual, something Crane and the other founders had done in the woods, something that had called forth a shadow. The narrator's voice would grow urgent, hinting at a deeper conspiracy. Asterisk Ethan and Mia realized they hadn't ended anything by burning the book, they'd only angered it. The Shadow Man wasn't just a ghost of the town's guild. It was tied to something specific. Something the founders had done. Something still buried. Ethan's grandmother confirmed it that night, her voice low as she sat them down in her cramped living room, the air thick with the smell of old wood and candle wax. Crane and the others. She said, they made a deal. They wanted power, wealth, a town of their own. But they paid a price. Blood was spilled out there in the woods. And something answered. Something that's been here ever since. She told them about a place deep in the forest. A circle of stones the locals called the Hollow Ring, where the ritual had happened. If you want to stop him, she said, you have to go there. But it won't be easy. He'll fight to keep what's his. Asterisk the narrator would slow, building dread as Ethan and Mia prepared. They didn't want to go, but the tapping was louder now, following them everywhere. School, the diner, their dreams. The Shadow Man was closer, its form sharper, its void face almost alive with something that wasn't human. They set out at dusk, armed with flashlights, a map from Ethan's grandmother, and a knife Mia insisted on bringing, though Ethan doubted it would help. The woods were darker than before, the trees leaning in, their branches like skeletal fingers. The air hummed with that same unnatural sound, low and pulsing, like a heartbeat in the earth. Asterisk the Hollow Ring was a clearing, ringed by jagged stones that seemed to glow faintly in the twilight. In the center was a pit, black and bottomless, the air around it thick with a cold that bit into their bones. Ethan felt it immediately. The Shadow Man was here, not visible yet, but present, its weight pressing down on them. Mia clutched the knife, her knuckles white, but her voice was steady. What do we do? She asked. Ethan didn't know, but he remembered his grandmother's words, face the truth. He stepped toward the pit, his flashlight shaking, and spoke into the darkness. I know what you are, he said, his voice trembling but clear. You're their mistake, their guilt. But we're not them. We're not afraid. Asterisk the hum grew, louder, the air vibrating, and then it appeared not one Shadow Man but dozens, rising from the pit, their forms merging and splitting, their void faces a chorus of nothingness. Ethan's courage faltered, his mind flooded with images, his failures, his fears, the secrets he'd never told anyone. Mia screamed, dropping the knife, her hands clawing at her head as if she saw the same. The Shadow Men closed in, their forms towering, the air choking with their presence. Ethan grabbed Mia's hand, pulling her back, and they ran, the stones trembling behind them. The hum now a roar. They stumbled through the woods, branches tearing at their skin. The Shadow Men's presence like a weight on their backs. Asterisk they made it to the edge of town, collapsing in the diner's parking lot, the neon sign flickering above them. The hum faded, but Ethan knew it wasn't over. The Shadow Man or men were still out there, tied to the Hollow Ring, to the pit, to the sins of Black Hollow. He and Mia had faced the truth, but it wasn't enough. The narrator would end on a chilling note. Some things can't be undone. Some shadows never leave. And in Black Hollow, the Shadow Man is always watching.